And now, are you stockpiling for a national emergency is what we're asking. UK households have been told to prepare an emergency pack in the event of a national crisis, filled with 3 days' worth of foods and water. Now, the Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden, revealed a national prepare website in order to help the public cope in a crisis like a power cut, flood, cyber attacks or conflict. Now, as well as bottled water and non-perishable food, the households have been told to pack their emergency kit of items with battery-powered or wind-up radios, torches, first aid packs, hand sanitisers, wet wipes. Now, the kit is intended to help people survive 3 days at home without leaving their homes at minimal notice. We're asking, is that fear-mongering or is it a wise idea? 0207 862 2222 is the number for your opinions, and we'll speak to you in just a moment. We've done our own very quick survival pack here. I mean, I don't think that's enough water to survive for 3 days, but bottles water is one of the things. Batteries, I don't know why you would need so many, but just a couple of batteries to tide you through. Some canned goods, so you're not going hungry. And of course, the very popular loo roll when it comes to stockpiling. That seems to be the first thing that Brits go for. So we've got loo roll and candles. They always come in handy. Now, we don't have a wind-up radio here, but just some of the essentials. Ava, do you think this is just fear-mongering or actually kind of sensible to have these things in the house?
There's a cynical part of me that thinks that perhaps, you know, one way to win an election is to put the country on a war footing, and it's almost as if you're sort of trying to frighten people into submission. You know, this sort of gives me the, brings back Margaret Thatcher and Michael Foot. And, when Margaret Thatcher was looking towards the Falklands and she became the clear front runner because the country didn't want a Labour government to go into war, to take them into war. And this sort of reminds me of that. I mean, it's absolutely obscene, isn't it, that you would think that you would need to have these sort of goods. I mean, it's probably good to have water in your house, especially with the state of our water companies at the moment.
Well, I was just going to say, is it actually that bizarre an idea when we're being told to boil our tap water in Devon and drink bottled water? Maybe this is just sensible planning for any household.
I tell you, it's really interesting, the theory you've come up with. You think it's a political tactic then to
no, because it just seems it's so ridiculous, isn't it, that you would tell people to get 3 days' worth of goods ready?
Well, I'll tell you what's really interesting is that it does make you think, because what I would be saying to people is that you should if you want to protect yourself for some sort of crisis, make sure you've always got cash. It's very likely that the digital world that we live in will suddenly go. How many times have you been in, for example, into a shop, a supermarket or a petrol station where the machines have gone down? It's happened in my case, and the only thing you can do is have cash. And how many people don't actually recognise they should always have some cash hanging around? So that if you want to be protecting yourself, have some cash. And then if you live in rural parts of Britain, you'll always make sure that you are stocked up with things because the weather could change, whether you could get in and out of places. So I don't have a problem with that. The thing about sort of stocking up in an urban environment, I don't think that most people actually will have the space to start off with. They live in such small things. And your survival kit, it's no good having all of those tins there if you don't have a tin opener. I mean, things like that. If you don't really...
That goes without saying.
Yeah,
Most people
but
have
you
a tin
don't.
opener anyway, but you need something to eat. So
but I just think people might say, oh, God, we'll do that. You don't really need the loo paper. I mean, so if you are going to have...
I suggest you do, Wilfred. What's the alternative? A wet flannel?
No, well, you see, I just think if we're talking about survival, you've got to start, and then you've only got a certain amount of space. The thing that's really essential is actually food. How do you get food?
Because you can't cook that, can you, either?
And the other thing is this, is that the things that it's not available in supermarkets as much now are canned foods and frozen foods. They're not fashionable anymore. People have really gone down the route of sort of freshness. So people are going to find it very difficult to get nice, edible, tasty things in cans. You'll probably get...
I think when it comes to just either being really hungry or eating, it doesn't have to be that edible. It just has to be there, and it has to
Well, I would like to have
sustenance.
meat. You don't find meat in cans these days. I think you've got some of that
Corned
there,
beef, spam? Of course you do.
Can I be honest? If I was told we're going to war and you've got to have 3 days' worth of supplies, I'd let myself go there. I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't have this pack because I go, do you know what? I've had a nice time here. That's enough for me.
It's not just about food, though. Some of this in the prepared website, I think actually might be quite sensible. Things like have a written down list of your emergency contacts, just in case, you know, your phone goes down, you can't get electricity.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you would make the phone call, but if you could find a phone in some sort of manner, at least you would have the numbers of the people that you need to speak to check on them.
How many of your loved ones do you actually know their numbers anymore? Now I'm thinking about it, I actually don't think I know my dad's phone number.
No, so some of it actually, maybe it is reasonable advice, and maybe you think this is just for the conspiracy theorists amongst you. Let's speak to somebody now who has already started stockpiling. This is Lee Price from Bilthwells in Mid Wales. You were kind of ahead of the curve on this one, actually. What made you start stockpiling?
Is that your stockpile behind you?
Oh, God.
No, this is my shop. I sell all survival gear and prepping items. But no, like you said before, growing up in a rural environment, which I have done, people always have a full larder of food because you never know what sort of weather you get, especially winter time. So it just makes common sense, doesn't it, to make sure you've got plenty of supplies at home.
When you say supplies, what sort of things are you stockpiling?
Well, it's the basics, really, isn't it? It's food, shelter, and water. So that's what we need to survive, don't we? We need something to drink, something to eat, and some way of keeping us warm and dry.
You've got crossbows up there as well. What was that? Is that to go hunting?
What is up there? Sorry.
You got crossbows. I could see at the back.
Crossbows are. I sell all sorts of things in my shop, and you'd be surprised what people buy. But no, to be more sensible, it's food, shelter, and water. That's what most people want. You can go down the route of, electric generators and all that sort of stuff, but it's the basics.
And when did you start stockpiling? When did you think it's important to do this?
I wouldn't say I started stockpiling any time. It's just what people do, especially in the rural environment. You always make sure you've got plenty of supplies. I don't stockpile as such. I just got plenty of supplies at home, which I rotate on a basis. And so if something happens and you couldn't leave the house or the shops are shut for whatever reason, we've got plenty of food at home for myself and the family.
What about
that's what it's all about.
What about the current climate, whether that's abroad or domestically? Do you think that now is a particularly important time to be in that sort of mindset of keeping enough sustenance in your house for 3 days minimum?
It's an insurance policy, isn't it? So you insure against, your car or your house, whatever. So why not insure against uncertainty? So make sure you've got supplies at home. So, we've seen it in the pandemic, all that sort of stuff. People didn't leave the house. They're afraid to go outside for whatever reason. So if that's the case, could you survive at home without leaving the house for 2-3 days? Have you got enough water there? If the water went off or there was a problem, have you got a way of collecting water, purifying it? If you couldn't get to the shops or supply chain issues, have you got enough food at home for yourself and the family just for a few days? So it's common sense, really. Unfortunately, common sense is not that common anymore, but most people who have got common sense will think, it's a good idea to make sure I've got the cupboards full and not just live, day to day.
Well, it's certainly not common. Common sense doesn't seem to be common in my household, but I will change that now that I've spoken to you, Lee. Stay with us. I'm going to take some calls now. Susan from Lincolnshire, are you stockpiling?
I do stockpile because I don't have a shop, local shop anymore. But my mum used to stockpile because she was from the war. Unfortunately, we had to keep it on the top of our cellar steps. And she realised that the people that was reading the meter, the tins were going, and she blamed us kids. And it wasn't. It was the meter reader who was actually taking it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. That was probably early days of charity, just leaving food outside your house and people would come around and take it or nick it, whatever way you want to describe it there. So it's something that you've carried on. Do you have children, Susan? Have they carried on the stockpiling?
To a certain extent, I have one, but he does keep stuff in because he's like me. He's lived out here and it's become natural. But I do keep food in for... I could get snowed in, I have no shop. If the delivery people can't make it through, then I'm without. So I have to stockpile.
I have clearly been too urbanised. I have been a city dweller most of my life, and I had no idea that when you live rurally, this is just a sort of part of the mindset, as Lee was saying. Susan, thank you very much for your call. Jack from London, you're a city dweller at the moment. Are you stockpiling?
Oh, I've been doing that for a long time.
And how much stock have you piled up?
Well, couple of £100 worth, I would say. And I have a tin opener.
Oh, good. What a relief. Yeah. Not everything has a ring pull these days.
I'll be round your house in the apocalypse then, Jack.
Yeah, well,
you'll have to share that around the community. What are you stockpiling? Canned goods, obviously.
Mainly canned foods. Yeah, the stuff I eat, like, you know, as you showed there, spam, fray bentox, what do you call that stuff? Steak and kidney pie, you know, and then loads of. I've got 2 fridges. I'm very lucky on that side. I got 2 fridges, freezers. So I filled that up with pizzas, meatsas, and whatever that I can use my hand.
Can I ask, how long have you been storing this stuff up for?
Well, I've been doing this ever since prior to COVID.
Well,
so I more or less envisaged that that's going to happen, and as it turned out, a lot of people started stockpiling, buying toilet rolls, water, main essentials. So I started buying when I saw that coming up. I personally don't have much faith in the government, either government, either. No, I don't. Absolutely, I don't. And so I look after myself. I don't think they look after you.
I've got that, Jack. You're looking after yourself. Do you know there's a sell-by date on some of these things? It's just you're saying pizzas and canned goods. Now, canned goods do last.
Is it a use-by date or sell-by date? Because that's
I don't know.
Yeah, because there's a difference.
But there's definitely a date that they want you to eat it by.
That spam's fine forever.
Yeah, I mean,
2027.
Really?
So you have to eat that.
Is forever.
But again, that might be used by not.
No, but what I'm trying to get to, Jack, have you got a system of sort of replenishing and using up the stuff?
Yeah, I sort of put the old stuff at the bottom, and I put vice versa. I put the new stuff at the top, and I put the new thing at the bottom. I go to a company like Costco, and I buy loads of stuff from them. And in actual fact, they did the delivery last week.
Another quick question for you, Jack. Why? Why are you doing this? You live in London. It's unlikely that we're going to have as extreme weather that would mean that you wouldn't be able to get to a shop. So what's the purpose of it?
It's not the weather. I'm worried that, you know, we could be heading towards a World War III. Our defense system is diabolical. We don't have a defense. We're sending whatever we have to foreign countries when we should be looking after ourselves. Mr. Putin, on the other hand, is over there next door, and we haven't been able to do anything against him. And we can't.
I hear you. So you're doing it in case of the conflict, which is one of the reasons that they have this prepared website now. Jack, thank you very much for your call. A couple of messages coming in on X. Lexi on Twitter, X, says that it's hardly stockpiling when people in Devon lost their water. That was for over a week. Yep, that's what we spoke about. If your supermarket is out of something for weeks, how is 3 days going to cover it? Vicky on X says it's fear-mongering. We will end up in the same position as at the start of COVID lockdowns when everyone was queuing up for loo paper, although Jeremy always makes the point that when COVID hit, we queued up for loo paper. Americans queued up for guns. So perhaps the British way is maybe better.
I actually was fine for loo paper because there's I tell you, any Turkish shop in London, they will have what you need. They were constantly full the entire time, no problem.
Good hint for the future.
Yeah.
Lee, I suppose this is just a way of life. You're going to continue this regardless of what's going on abroad or domestically.
I would say way of life. Like, it's the shop. I sell this to. There's a broad society of preppers, survivalists in the UK. Quite a big society or community, I should say, and they've all got their heads screwed on. They all know what's going on in the world and prepare for it. And it's just, like I said, being sensible. An insurance policy.
Lee, please.
Freeze-dried food, water filters, bug-out bags, electrical systems.
Listen, Lee, now
So
I think you're just promoting what you sell there, but fair play to you. Lee Price, thank you very much for your time. Huge thank you to my panel.